Okay, there's a blonde lady, and she decided to take up a hobby.
Okay.
So she says, she started thinking, she says, I know what I'm going to take up. I'm going to take up ice fishing. So she got all the equipment, you know, the saw that you make the little hole in the ice with, and she got all the warm clothes, and she got a basket, all the stuff that she wanted. And then she said, I've got to go find a piece of ice. So she found this piece of ice, and she sawed her little hole. She put her chair down, and she put bait on her hook, and dropped in her pole in the water. And she hears this booming voice. It said, there's no fish under the ice. Oh, excuse me, I'm not on. There's no fish. There we go. Now, close your eyes and you'll hear the booming voice. There's no fish under the ice. So she takes her chair and she moves on down about, 50 feet more, and she cuts another little hole in the ice, and she drops her pole in, and she starts to fish, and she's so confused, and so all of a sudden she hears this voice again. There's no fish under the ice. And she said, God, is that you? And the voice came back, no, this is the manager of the ice rink. Well, that's a lead into what I'm going to talk about. When you laugh out loud, when you read a joke and you laugh out loud, you know it's a funny joke. Well, anyway, what I'm going to talk about today is that voice. We're going to talk about something about that voice. Sometimes we don't know that voice, do we? So, how many of you speak a foreign language in here? That's what I wanted to see. Wow. Wow. That's definitely foreign to some of us, Alan. Well, if you didn't learn that language as a child, you had to really practice it. And you had to spend time, learning it and speaking it, and you had to listen to be able to, speak it in the right way. And today I am going to talk about a spiritual language. And I've talked about this before, but Spirit really has been telling me that this is a tool for the 21st century. This is a tool for this pivotal time in history. It's really important that we tune into the spiritual language. It's a language that transcends time and space. It transcends words, the meaning of words. It's a powerful language, but it's also a language that takes practice. And it takes for us to learn it and really master it. It can only be learned if you are paying close attention and staying in the moment. And we've heard so much, Eckhart Tolle started talking about staying in the moment. And we heard so much about that. But I think that I know one of the very first things I did when I began to come out of church was I began to write down all the scriptures that said God was speaking. And there are thousands of scriptures throughout the Bible that say that God is always speaking. And I'm going to read a few of them. And so my brothers, of course, said, there she goes again, God's speaking to her. But God is speaking to all of us. Divine, that higher self, that consciousness, that spark of life is speaking to all of us all the time. So it can only be when we're really in the moment and when we're looking for it and we're paying attention to it. It can be learned by any nationality, any gender, any age group. I mean, this is not a language that's cut off from anybody. It's a language we can all hear, but the question is how many of us are really listening for it? And how many of us have tuned into it? Some people channel like Dana does. So she's really tuned into that voice. But each and every one of us in other ways in our life have that same capacity. What if we walked moment by moment, being guided by this invisible realm in a really deep way? It makes life magical, but it's a universal language, and it's constantly trying to speak to every single one of us in here. Probably already, it's the language of spirit. And how many of us are really tuned into that? And it consists of signs. It's not like an English language. It consists of signs and symbols and energy and dreams, which Miles talks about, and thoughts. And it's spoken through nature. When an animal shows up in your life, it's spoken through a beautiful flower. I've told you before, one time I was with my friend Sandy, who lost her son. And we were in the shop, and she's telling the lady about losing her son, and she's saying this. She said, and my son used to always bring me yellow roses. I said, Sandy, turn around. Behind her was a big vase of yellow roses. You know, and I've said this story before about Ariel. Nana and I did her little memorial. And do you remember, Nana, when we began to talk about Ariel, the wind? There was no wind. We did it in a shelter in a park. There was no wind. And the moment we began to talk about Ariel, that wind began to pick up. And it just gave you chills. Because your whole body knows when something is really happening when you're paying attention. It can be an aroma. It can even be, like I said, a breeze. And one time, I've told this story before too. In fact, Nana was here for this one. I'm typing away on an article, spiritual article, and all of a sudden my font changes to Ariel. And I didn't know how to change my font. Kobe and Nana were in my house and changed it back to what it was. I started typing the spiritual, it went back to Ariel. So there's so many ways we can tap into this. It's those we think that are past that are telling us they're still here and that they love us and let us know they're all right. I know Sharon had a dream about her husband. I was thinking about that he was in a sailboat. Remember Sharon? After he left. And that he was all healthy and young and happy. And she could see he was fine. That's the language of spirit. That's when we really tap in. We're tapping into another dimension. They send you a song. I told you the day I was with my niece and there was a rainbow that covered us at the beach. And the next day I got in my car and Elvis Presley was on and he was singing, I have a rainbow and a pocket full of rainbow and a star up my sleeve. So there was rainbows twice. So when we are really tuned into that, Spirit is always talking to us. Or they can send you a dream. Whatever it is, we are tapping in, we are learning. We are multi-dimensional beings. And what we're seeing with our eyes is the matrix. What we're really doing is transcending that matrix and tapping into something so much bigger. How many of you maybe felt a gentle hand on your back or on your cheek? I mean, those things, Michelle, those things are really so real. It's saying, you may not see me, but I'm here. This language is a living force. And guess what? It's in everything. Every single thing. We saw the plants, the music of the plants. How many of us can commune with a plant? I mean, I know I communed with that seagull at the beach that I told you about. That seagull, I mean, once I connected with that seagull, why can't we connect? And I'm going to show you that the language has been separated, not just from people, but the language has been separated from all the kingdoms. And we should be communing with all the kingdoms. We should be communing with the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, all of those, even the heavens. And I'm going to show you that too. We are really multidimensional and everything is speaking. The question is, do we believe it? And are we listening? So it's beyond, this language is beyond conceptual thinking. It's that inner hearing and that inner seeing. It's that inner experience where you travel way beyond what you are seeing with your eyes to experience life and the beingness of everything. You know, if we could even look at a rock, you know, it says in the scriptures too, if we didn't worship, he could raise up the rocks. Even a rock is moving at all times. A stone, everything has a beingness to it. And if we are really one, we've talked about being one with each other, but what about being one with all of the different kingdoms? And that's one of the things Trigilla was talking about. She goes all over Europe teaching about the music of the plants, and she was saying, those plants carry the wisdom. And they're really here. They want to connect back with us. They're here to connect back with us so that we can really gain from their oneness. So it's a place that you can discuss things with plants and animals and gain wisdom. And she was talking about the different things, like if one tree is dying, it can give the wisdom to another tree. And then we can gain that wisdom from that. So phenomenal that we are expanding our consciousness to know that we are in oneness with everything. Let me see. I wanted to talk about the Tower of Babel. How many of you have ever heard the story of the Tower of Babel in the Bible? Oh, good. Good, I won't be. Well, you know, it gives us a big key about language and what happens. In the scripture, it tells us the Lord said, behold, the people are one, and they have one language. So what does that mean? That means that in oneness, we are all going to be having one language. Do you think it's English? Do you think it's Italian? Do you think it's Spanish? I think it's spirit. That we are all going to be communing. You know, everybody, when you read all these near-death experiences and everything, whenever they go to the other side, it's never talking. It's all just through the mind. It's all just connecting to those things. So it said the people are all one, and they have one language. We were all one, and we all did commune like that. And now nothing, now listen to this. When there's one language, listen to what it says. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. The power, when we connect to this language of spirit, and the more of us that begin to connect with that, anything we imagine is possible. Because we are connecting to something that transcends the limitations of a three-dimensional world. It is so powerful. And here's the power held in it. This one language of spirit, and it said, let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another. And this is not just between people. I believe this was between all of the kingdoms, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom. How many times in the Bible and other places have we heard that animals were talking and communing? But we always thought it was just a fable or a story, but I believe they can't. I know that bird was telling me that day when he was standing there looking at me for about 20 minutes, and I began to know what that bird was thinking and transmitting to me. And it wasn't in English. It was something that just began to come into my thoughts when we connect with something. So what we're doing this morning, we're stretching ourselves to know that we can commune with nature. We can commune with animals. Animals bring us, we know animals speak, but how about communing ourselves with that animal? Instead of having to get our book and look up all the things that the animal has come to show us, what if we begin to commune with those animals and we begin to get the message of what they were bringing? So it's this language of spirit. When they separated the language, what did it bring? It brought separation. So all of the kingdoms were separated. Listen to the verse which tells us more. Now listen, it says, therefore, the name of it was Babel. What is Babel? It's confusion. It's pollution of the mind. And that's what's happened to us. Our minds have been polluted and separated to think that we can't commune with all nature. That we can't commune with the animals and the trees and the plants that carry the wisdom. I had a tree in my front yard. How many of you have ever seen the tree that I used to have in my front yard? Everybody that came over said fairies were in that tree. It was a big old oak tree. That tree carried such wisdom. To tap into that tree that probably was over 100 years old and know what that tree knew about the property, about the wisdom. And we are really getting to the place where we're going to be doing those things. It says, because the Lord did there confound, now listen to it, the language of all the earth. So it wasn't just the language of man. It was the language that we communed with other things, with all of the different kingdoms, was confounded. And I'm not going to go into who I believe the Lord is. I don't think it's the one that we think that created everything. I think we're learning about the Bible in such a bigger way, but that's another story. So it wasn't just communication between humans, but it was the communication between all of creation that was really brought into confusion, polluting our minds and thinking that we were separated. That, there's only one problem in the whole world today, and that is this belief in separation. What if we knew we were connected to everything? Connected to each other, connected to every plant, the grass, the beach. I told you how I pick up trash at the beach, and I bless all those people, but if they knew that they were connected to that beach, that was their mother, they would never do that. Because you would be honoring all those things. It would change everything. So another scripture says, the heavens declare the glory of God. So the heavens, which Reba knows, the heavens are speaking all the time. My daughter's mother was just up, and she was saying, she's just getting into a little bit of this. And she says, the kids, my two little grandkids from my son, she says, I had part of their astrology done. And, Harlow is connected to spirit in a really big way. And I said, I totally believe that. And she said, and Phoenix is going to be such a great man. And I said, I believe that too. And she was getting all, because she's beginning to see that the heavens are speaking, that we can begin to get messages. It says they declare your glory, the glory of God. They're declaring to us who we are, that we are lights in the universe, that we are made of stardust, that we are multidimensional. If we could see that everything is speaking, and I think that's what my adventure on the beach has been. I just see everything is bringing a message. Have you ever heard of a newborn baby? Have you ever held a newborn baby before they learn another language and they communicate with their mothers or their caregivers through thoughts and feelings? You know, that we used to call it mother's intuition, but you can feel with that baby. We know that. We're communing in a different language with those new babies. There's that feeling, you know what they need. You know they're hungry. They need their pants changed. What an example. And then, but it's such a good example, but as the baby grows and they begin to learn words and we put labels on things, they lose that. They begin to lose that, which we need to really keep connecting kids to. That connection to spirit. How many have looked into the eyes of a newborn baby and seen the whole world? You know, I have a little grandson who's 5 months old. And when I look into his eyes, I see a depth there. And I always say, I see you, Phoenix. I know who you are. We took him to lunch the other day, and I thought this was such a great example. He smiles all the time, this child. The only time he gets nervous is when his sister comes up. He goes like this because she's a little wild hair. So he starts blinking, and he doesn't know what's going to come at him. But he's sitting at the table and in his little seat, and my son walks in, and he goes, and starts smiling. And I said, Anthony, you know, speak to him. He went over and spoke to him and everything. And then this friend of ours came to the table, and then he starts doing it again. He goes, I know he was trying to say something to this guy, and the guy was just ignoring Phoenix, and he was flapping his arms and doing everything he could to get this guy's attention. I said, excuse me, you see that? Go say hello to him. I swear that kid was going to, and he was. I said to my daughter-in-law's mother, I said, look, he is trying to talk over there. And you know what? I think that's why they come in and can't talk. Because if they could talk, they'd tell us something that we ain't ready to hear. But I know that baby knows some. But there's a vibrational song for each of us, and it's not heard with our ears, but for every cell in our bodies. And if we can tap into that vibrational song of everything that has a living force, it would change our world. And I think I've talked about this before, but Spirit, I had something totally else planned. But Spirit keeps bringing this back to me, how important it is for us to connect to this language of spirit. Because it's talking to all of us all the time. It can change our lives. It can make your life magical. So it's not heard with your ears. When we learn a physical language, we experience a forgetting and a relearning. But the language of spirit is always with us. It's right there with us. It's waiting for us to reactivate it. You know, it's like riding a bike. You know, you don't ride a bike, and then all of a sudden you get older and you get on a bike, you think, can I still do it? Yes. All you got to do is get on and pedal. And that's the same with the spiritual language. How many of us have had those gut feelings? Or butterflies in your stomach? Or a tight chest? Or a lump in your throat? Or a check in your spirit? When you heard something you know it wasn't true. How many of us have heard that? You know, somebody's telling us something real wonderful, but there's this check in our spirit that we know it's not true. The body can feel that language of spirit. Spirit comes, this language, we're made for it. You are made more for the spirit of language than you are for the spirit of the language of English. You are more connected to it, and when we really start to get connected, it is going to just blossom for all of us. The body can feel it, or you've experienced a good vibration as you heard something, or you read something, and you know it resonates with you. And a knowing, an emotion that raises your vibration. How about an uneasy feeling? How many of us have had that? That maybe we shouldn't go there or do that. You know, but we haven't been learned. We haven't been taught to tap into those and believe those. You know, I remember I've had feelings about people, and you feel guilty. You think, you know, no, I'm just going to press that down. And then it comes and I see why. You know, I believe we're all connected, but sometimes there's certain people that we're to be really connected with. But we really need to begin tapping into those. And those are the things I'm trying to tell my grandkids. These are the things we need to keep alive with our children. Ever heard of kids say, that guy gave me the willies? You know, kids know. Kids know. Scripture says we are in the world, but we are not of the world. You know, we talk about aliens. Hello, aliens. None of you are of this world. None of us. We're all aliens. We didn't come from here. We just arrived here on this planet to be part of this big, great show. So Scripture says we're in the world, but not out of it. Our true language is the language of spirit. And when we're coming back to that language, it's going to bring us into that oneness. What if we could commune with each other? How many times has the phone rang and you know who's on the other end of that phone? Those are those hints that there is that language of spirit. And we are here to reconnect, to relearn, to re-listen to that language of spirit. So I want to just give a few ways of how we do it today. First of all, you got to believe there's the language of spirit. You know, when I brought my little pink shoes up here, and this week I found a blue bucket. You know, I was telling about blue. You got to believe that that is coming into your life as a message. And Reba is so good about that too. But you believe in that language of spirit, which is the only true language. And know it is there to guide you. When you have those feelings, when you hear something, when you know and begin to trust that more than what you hear with your ears. How about that? We think that what we hear with our ears is the reality and the truth. What you're beginning to tap into is the true reality that knows the truth and is trying to bring it back into our remembrance. Scripture says this, listen to this. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth wisdom. There is no speech or language where the voice is not heard. Doesn't matter if you live in Italy. Doesn't matter if you live in Timbuktu or Borneo or wherever you live. There's no place on this planet where that voice cannot be heard if a person taps into it and makes an intention to tap into it. So it's always calling us. And another scripture said, and they called to the Lord who answered them. So that divinity, when we call and ask, are you expecting an answer? You know, we still are in an impart realm. We look for healing outside. We look for guidance outside of ourselves. We look for direction. But the truth is, everything is inside of us. And that's where we're going. The truth is, all healing, permanent healing, has to come from within us. Permanent guidance has to come from within us, and that's what we're really learning to tap into. So when we call, there's this spirit, this invisible force that's there ready to answer. It's, are we asking the right question? So we have to believe it's our birthright to commune with the divinity or that spark within us. It's your birthright to commune with your plants. It's your birthright to commune with animals. It's your birthright to connect to Mother Earth, Gaia. It's your birthright. But we haven't understood who and what we are. But it's our birthright to receive answers, direction, guidance, wisdom. We look to other people and we honor that. And some tap in a greater way and they can help our direction, totally help us. But they're always pointing us to, for us to tap in within ourselves, because that is really where guidance comes from. The key is to ask the right questions. And the next, number 2 I said is, set your intention to have a relationship with the spiritual language. You know, we were talking the other day, Pam, many of us were in Pentecostal churches and we got our prayer language, we called it. And we would talk in tongues. We didn't know what the heck we were saying, but we were all talking in tongues. But this language, you know, this language, when you tap into the spiritual language, it's taking you to the depth of beingness, to that life force that has all the answers. So don't let your left brain talk you out of communing with that ability. It says in the Bible too, the carnal mind is enmity against the things of the divine and can't know them. That means your left brain. That left reasoning brain can't get it. But your right brain and your pineal gland is there to help us begin to get it. You may think that you're losing your marbles, but you know what's happening? We're finding our marbles really today, because we've lost the marbles before, and now we're picking up those marbles and putting them back in our bag. So in truth, the only eternal language is the spirit language. All of these other languages of Babel, they're going to pass away. What we're tapping into is something that's really eternal, and we're beginning to understand that. Number 3 is unplug from the third dimensional realm, which is a physical reality, that world reality, which we know can only happen when we quiet our minds. So meditation is probably so important. The more time you spend disconnecting from the world, and from the physical world, the more time you will reconnect with spirit. And you know, last week Richard Geib was here, and he gave 10 keys, which I think is so important. He gave the 5 elements and the 5 essence. And the 5 elements are air, water, sun, earth, and spirit. Go to the beach, you got all 5 of them. And the essence are stillness, silence, solitude, sacred, and space. The most important, I think, and this is why we have that, to be still. You know, I want to read this. All of man's miseries derive from not being able to sit in a quiet room alone. You know, when you're alone, I was listening to some YouTube videos about people connecting back to nature. They're going on these nature quests where they're going into the woods and trying to connect to the trees and connect to the plants and all of that. And it was this young guy was saying, it was one of the hardest things I ever did. Because to be alone with yourself, you face yourself. And that is the truth. When you are quiet and you are alone, you have to face those things that are in yourself. But that's when those things come up and we're able to get rid of them. As long as we're in all the chaos and everything, we can't do it. So in the world that runs in 3-dimensional, we'll never find peace. Because there isn't peace in this 3rd dimension. But we're here to transcend the world. You know, Jesus said this, in the world, in the 3-dimensional world, you're going to have tribulation, which means you're going to have ups and downs, you're going to have problems, you're going to have all of this. But then he gave you a real encouraging statement. He said, be of good cheer. I've overcome the 3-dimensional world. I was able to transcend it. And so can you. And that's what we're here for, to transcend this 3-dimensional world. And we're here to really transcend that matrix that keeps us in this illusion that we're limited. We're limitless beings. But what does it mean to live like that? And that's what we're really learning. So I think one of the most powerful reconnections, something that's really changed my life. And I had a prayer language for 25 years, and I don't think that changed my life. But what has really changed my life is beginning to learn this language of spirit. To really connect, to know that everything is speaking to me, guiding me, directing me. So take time every day to be still, to be silent, to be alone. Create a sacred space in nature. I have this little place at the beach where I sit at my back of the tree and there's 2 other trees and it's a triangle. So I'm at the head of the triangle and I've just made that my sacred place. And when I sit down there, it's like I can just feel the energy because I've set that apart to be still and quiet in that place. And that tree, I can feel the energy of that tree. I can hear the other ones. That's where that little bird came to start reprimanding me that day. But anyway, create that space. Take time to quiet your mind. Follow your breath. Walk barefoot. Connect to Mother Earth. We talked about earthing and how it's so healing to lie in the grass. I lie in the sand at the beach. Lie and connect with the earth. Not only that, it de-energizes our body. All the bad things go out of our body. It just makes you alive. The word disciple in the Bible means discipline. And even gurus had disciples. It means that we are here to have some discipline in our lives. Discipline to put first things first. And I think Richard said last week too, which is a powerful statement. It says, seek you first the kingdom of heaven. If you're seeking everything outside and thinking that the more you do and the more all of this you're going to get, it says seek you first what's inside of you. And then all of these things, whatever it is, relationships, money, all of these things will be given unto you. You know, it says in the Old Testament, it says, when you're blessed, you can't get out of the way of the blessings. You're blessed in this city. You're blessed in the field. You're blessed going in. You're blessed going out. Once we get in harmony with divinity, we are going to be blessed in every area of our life. And one is connecting to hear that voice, that language of spirit. And the third one is to trust. Ask a question and trust the first answer you get, or feeling or insight that you would believe. Get a notepad and write it down. You know, that's how the book Conversations with God was written. And every time I read one of Wayne Dyer's books, he said, you know, I just connect, and it's like I'm not writing, this language just flows right through me. And so that's how all of us have that ability. So if answers don't come immediately, you know what it means? It means it's time for you to practice being present, aware, and alert every moment. because the answer is coming. And spirit can be creative and have a sense of humor. It will find the most appropriate way to tell you. How many of you have ever asked questions seen on the back of a bumper sticker? Or I told you that song on a radio. Or I can receive an answer. One day I was asking on the beach and somebody had drawn this picture on the beach and it was my answer right there on the beach, waiting for me to walk and see that answer. So you will always get the answer. It can come from the mouth of a friend or the mouth of a stranger. When you hear it, you're awake and alert, and every fiber in your body knows that it's for you. And so I wanted to read this quote. I just love this because this is where we are today. So listen, close your eyes a minute, just listen to this. And take this into your spirit because this is truth. Man is in the process of changing to forms that are not of this world. Grows he in time to the formless, a place in the cycle above. Know ye, must become formless before you are one with the light. Think of that. We are changing into things that are not of this world. That's who you really are. That formless that's one with the light. You're ready, you can open your eyes. This is from the emerald tablets that have so much of the Bible that were found, and they're thousands of years before the Bible. One of the things, it's what's happening. What we are doing is we are turning matter back into spirit. Matter back into spirit. And this language is part of the tools that is given us. Our whole journey is about transformation and transforming that matter back into spirit. So we are called to reconnect to the spirit of the language of spirit. And it can be heard and connected to anytime, and it gives us the keys. You know, it says, I just want to read one scripture in Isaiah. It says, Israel was in a big problem, and he was trying to figure out what to do for the people. They were under this big burden. And so listen to what he said. He said, I've cried out to the Lord. And then listen to what he heard from Spirit. Their strength is to be still. So sometimes the greatest thing you can do in the midst of your biggest problems is to be still. We sang that this morning, didn't we? Mm-hmm. No, we didn't sing that this morning, but let it be. Mm-hmm. Let it be, which is closed. But sometimes the greatest thing you can do is be still. Be still and begin to connect to that spirit. Because I tell you, the world is changing. Everything that we've known is changing. It's imploding upon itself. If you don't think so, look at what's happening with Donald Trump. Have you ever, somebody just told me, we were at somebody's house, one of Nova's friends, and they said that somebody had done an astrology on him, and he's fulfilling what he came to do, to turn the tables over on government. Whether he's going to be president or not doesn't matter. My husband was saying, they said that what's happened with him is unprecedented. What has happened with this, whatever he's doing. So we're seeing new things come in that are turning the tables of the old over. And what's going to take us through the times ahead is being able to hear the voice and connect to the spirit of that language of spirit. Spirit has all of the answers. And it's just waiting for us to reconnect. That we can be those ones to help everybody as everything begins imploding. That we can bring that peace to the world. And it's with you taking that stillness, connecting to the plants, connecting to nature, connecting to Mother Earth, connecting to the heavens, and know that everything is here to give you guidance. And that there is a language that all of the words that we're saying are going away. Because there's a language that's deeper, and it's called the language of spirit. And it's the language that whatever we imagine, once we all speak that language, nothing can hold back what we imagine. And that's how we're going to create the new earth. And so it is. Anybody have anything they'd like to add to that?